Alright, testing, making sure my audio is good. So I'm making sure of that. Hey guys, welcome. Check this chat out. Welcome to another live stream here at TrinFx. I'm just gonna get started real quick. So I'm gonna take a look at the economic calendar, and today, actually this morning, we saw that like prices reversing right from the US dollar. The weakness that we did have beforehand, right, so we don't have much coming up in terms of news. The weakness that we did see beforehand, right, for the US dollar, if you take a look here at the DXY, we saw this little push here back to the upside, like a kind of like a small swing, and I think this is something we could expect, right, from next week. I do think we could expect a swing on the dollar, a little bit pullback to the upside, and then look for continuations down. Just because overall we did have a very strong downtrend and a push below this area, I wouldn't want to be like, trying to risk the trade and try to get into this at this point, right? And this is just looking at the US dollar strength slash weakness. Alright, from a daily perspective, we did break this level. I do think that we could wait for retracements back into that level for price to continue moving further lower. That being said, on the day we actually saw some price reversals, right, or price being sort of stagnant, right? And more specifically, I'm looking at the Canadian cross pairs, right, rather than USD. Just because in overall general, I do think that we're getting better movement with the I just think we're getting better movement with the CAD, alright? So with that being said, at this point here, I do expect price to actually come down. Again, this is just speculation on a pullback towards the major continuation to the long side for these currency pairs. But we could see this sort of market exhaustion, right? Price start to kind of just range in this point, right? Unable to actually push higher, and we see it gradually breaking lower, right? So this is also from the 4-hour and daily perspective coming into these highs, and price gradually just pulling back a little bit. So I do think that we could continue this like a sort of a pullback down into liquidity, and then from that point, get enough momentum for price to push higher. Now this is coming into next week. I am expecting price to drop a little bit, just to overall continue that bullish uptrend we have been seeing for some time, right, for the past week, right? So I do think that overall continuations to the upside, yes, that is the overall grand take of it. But we need to be aware of price action and the movement of price and the actuality that at this point it may see some sort of pullback, right? Even if we have a very strong trend in one direction, we'll still see pullbacks in that trend, or moments where the trend actually starts, get sort of exhausted and price starts to pull back a little bit in order to continue that move further, right? So with 80 CAD, 80 USD, this is like the expectancy for me, seeing price pull back a little bit, and then those continuations. We might see a pullback here on the DXY. Right, we did have some bearish news, CPI numbers, core inflation coming down is great. However, that means that okay, we may not see any rate hikes coming in near potential future, especially coming from this time when we had the projections being that we'll have 2 more rate hikes for this year, right? So taking that into consideration, and also job numbers and all these other factors, we saw price gradually fall for the US dollar. But I do think that at this point we could see some sort of reversal, right? And this is just, again, plain price action, something that we gradually always see from time to time. GBP has been performing really well, coming to the upside too, swinging to the upside. So in this case for me, with GBP CAD, I want to have sort of the same bias in pullbacks, but I don't know, with the GBP itself, it's just like a hit or miss at this point, right? This year for JPY, all right, we pulled strongly to the upside here, so this is sort of like my take. I want to say price could possibly target into this area. It is Friday, so I'm just gonna be like, relatively cautious about the type of movements that we can get from price. We see it pulling higher. We have these weak rejections here. So all of this is something you need to be aware of, right? So it makes the trade a lot more riskier. Let me just remove this. Alright, it makes the trade a lot more riskier when you do have all these weak rejections here, right? Even if price push bullishly into this level right here, this level of resistance, we have all these rejection areas, right? Price pull back multiple times from this area. All this noise to the left hand side. So what could we expect here? Maybe price does pull in to the level. However, it wouldn't be the cleanest, more sort of conservative move, just because it has a lot of noise to the left hand side. So there's a lot of risk involved, especially on Friday where we will have volume being low. So this is something that it could potentially play out, but at the same time it doesn't make sense taking the unnecessary risk. Alright, so let's take a look at something else. Let's take a look at gold. Right, gold for me is, I want to see it pull back all the way down here. This is sort of like what I want to see from gold, a pull back all the way down here. So you can see again gold currently ranging in this area here. And I am expecting those pullbacks for the US dollar. So for me, this would be my gold trade, right? Stops like right above this level here, right? Let me just delete everything else here. This was one of the trades that we could potentially get into. Alright, so this for me is a trade that I'll enter here on gold for price to pull down a little bit and continue moving down. And then potentially see some continuations, right? But this is sort of what I would expect from gold. For price to pull down from here, right? We saw that we came up from this area here. Nice bearish candles pushing in back into this zone. Alright, so if we get a bearish candle formation, then I think continuing into next week we see that pullback on gold happening, right? This is for the long continuation, still bias to the long side, weak dollar and everything, but you can see right to the left hand side, area of rejection and price consolidated here. So price action wise, technically it makes sense to see gold fall, right? On the fundamental side, right, we understand that the US dollar is weak. However, you know, in situations, even when we do have a weak currency, we could see those sort of pullbacks, not reversals, pullback movement within the overall uptrend, right? So this is the gold trade for me, and I don't particularly always trade gold. It's very rare for me to trade gold, but this is sort of the trade idea that looks the most reasonable, right? So this is the idea here. And the DXY may not conform. The DXY may actually fall lower. Who knows? But as always, with a grain of salt, you have to take these things with. We'll see how price action behaves when it comes closer to the New York session open and all of that. We might get a little bit of volume. We might see price perform a little bit. Who knows? But for now. For now, we'll just wait and see, because even if we print in lower here on the DXY, we can see that the movement's not really that much of a move here, right? Price really just stalling. That's the exhaustion that we're seeing currently. We also did have US Treasury bonds selling off, right? I think about 10 mil. So with that being said, we could expect to see some recovery, maybe. Alright, so gradually price approach these highs, all here, rejection, something we need to be aware of in the price action. We had that strong uptrend before, so now we're just in a peculiar area on price, right? So we may have our technical bias, our fundamental bias, but we have to wait, right? We really have to wait for that to align with our technical aspects, right? So our technical situation, if you do fundamental analysis as well, you just have to wait for it to align together to really get those best set of movements. And for us, with the US dollar being the main focus across all the currency pairs, what it does really does affect our trading and our trading plan. So that's sort of like my only take on it, on the situation, right? But this is it. This is it. So we'll see how that works out potentially. All right. So that's it. That's basically it. Um, Not really much to talk about going on for the course of today. It's gonna be pretty silent. Besides that, the only other thing that I could attest to was those US dollar moves, right? We did have a very bearish week. Let's just take a look here. Right, so CPI numbers came out a little bit less than expected. You can see here the inflation rate year over year, and we also had the month over month, 0.2% and 3% as well. So inflation coming down, core inflation coming down, which is great. All right, pretty aggressively, but that also means that markets are looking at the fact that all right, rate hikes, what can expect? Maybe we're not gonna get that, and then the forefront of markets' mind, and that's why we printed low, right? Why we printed even lower on the DXY. Right, the BOC, we did get the interest rate decision. Rates did raise for the Canadian economy. However, again, with the dollar being the core focus right now, we saw that negative move in printing on the CAD itself, and they're moving in tandem with each other right now, right? So, besides the CAD actually being more on the positive side in terms of news events and stuff that we did get, we're still seeing a sort of bearish move, right? So if we do have some sort of diversions on the CAD, right, compared with the dollar, then that would be great for actually taking CAD longs, right? Or if you see some recovery on the dollar too. Initial jobless claims, you can see that we did come out less here, but look, we had core PPI, right? We had PPI month over month and core PPI, which is more largely in focus, and you can see that actually came out a little bit worse than expected, right? Slightly so, not by too much or anything like that, but it was enough to make markets move even lower, printing lower, right? So I do think we could see some sort of recovery maybe and continuations, but again, it's all dependent on price action, right? You can see price came here, we had a little push to the upside, and now we're pushing back down. A really bearish couple of days, a really bearish week, right? So is anybody's guess price could continue pushing lower. It could either push even higher really on a Friday and coming into the next week. You have to be aware of the price action movement, right? Fundamentally, again, and I'm gonna keep repeating it, right? Because the thing about retail traders, see one thing happening like, so this is gonna be the move, but for whatever reason that doesn't happen because you're unaware of the fundamentals and the fact that okay, even if price is moving bullishly in one direction, no matter how bearish the news is, no matter how bullish the news is, it does not matter. There will always be chances or points of reversals or pullbacks to continue that move, right? Price wouldn't just keep on moving in one direction continuously without making some sort of pullback, alright? Because that's just like a rubber band, right? Or like, let's say for example, like a slinky, right? A slinky seems like a better sort of analogy to use in this point, right? So a slinky or a rubber band, right? Whichever one resonates with you better, alright? Price isn't just linear, right? It doesn't just go all the way up with bearish news, anything like that. It wouldn't just continue all the way up, right? At some point, I'm just using this as an example, at some point price has to pull back, alright? It has to pull back, balance out to continue that move higher, right? And as we get these pullbacks, right, we have a higher chance of seeing that continuation, right? Or seeing price continue longer, right? Even when we get something like this, right, we still could print higher, you can still see price moving higher, right? And this is usually what you'll see on a graph or the price action itself, right? And something, I don't know if you guys like did physics or anything like that, or about elasticity, right? When it comes to a rubber band or like a slinky or anything like that, right? There's usually a point at which part it can't go past the sorry, again tired, the elasticity of it, right? And there's a threshold, right? So there's a certain point at which part, all right, the price keeps on stretching, it can return to its original shape, right? And that's like how I would think about price action in a way, like to understand it. So even though we do have a trend that's pretty bullish or pretty bearish or whatever the case is, there's usually at some point where price has to pull back, right? Or it has to come back or return to like half of its original state to continue even higher, right? So to continue stretching or continue printing higher, price needs to pull back a little bit. And what we call it here, right, when we do a price action or when price looking for areas to pull back into, we call it grabs liquidity, right? So it grabbing the stop losses, it grabbing the where the money accumulated in to continue printing higher, right? And that's what we call it here when we're doing trading, right? So price does that, and at that point we get that money, we get that like additional whatever we need, right? That extra strength to continue printing higher. And that's just how I just feel, right? It may seem complicated to you, I don't know, but like for me, it's just like understanding, especially when it has like some divergence between price action and fundamentals. That's how like I think about it, like how I would rationalize it. At some point, price has to return to its original state or half of its original state, grab liquidity, and I'm using air quotes, grab liquidity to continue moving higher or printing in a certain direction, right? So yeah, that's just like my viewpoint on it. Because all right, the XY falls, right? We continued falling pretty strongly, right? But we have these little areas where price either consolidated, pull back a little bit, continue down, pull back, stretch all the way here, consolidated, pull back a little bit, continue all the way down, right? And we're looking at the major zones where price actually pulled from and all of that. Take a look from the daily. This was the last major zone here. And in my previous analysis, my weekly analysis, I would have posted on Saturday, right? So Saturday was I actually had the playlist, right? I have it in playlist, but Saturday would have been the 8th, right? So it would have been the 8th when I posted it. Right, I was expecting to see price come all the way back into this major zone, right, and potentially passing it. At that point, we would have a free fall, but still, we would see some sort of pullback, right? We may see a major pullback back into the zone for price to continue lower, right? Or it's more rational to actually see that pullback rather than price just continues printing all the way down, lower, right? That's just like one. Yeah, I think that's like a rational sort of way to think about price action, right? So here, like your AED, price has to pull back to continue moving lower. We have areas where we may see that that pullback actually happen, right? We have one here, price failed to maintain it, pull higher, and now we have this second level here, which is what we will be looking at for price to move into to continue moving lower. All right. And that's just like simple rationalization, I would say. Alright, so look, GJ actually printed a little higher right here. We may come into this zone, and then we may even come higher. Who knows? Right, gold flipped a little bit here. If we could get a break to the downside here, continuation seems more likely to the downside, right, for the pullback, so to speak. Right, and continuing for the course of the day, I don't know, we'll see what we see. Makes no sense trying to rush anything. We just have to let price do its thing. We're kind of exhausted right now, so it's either we pull back here, back to the zone, and then next week, coming into next week, we continue with that bearish sentiment that we have overall on the dollar, or price just stalls and consolidates, right? It just consolidates until the fundamentals align with a reasoning for price to pull up or for price to pull lower at that point, right? And at that point we could just, you know, get into some trade setups and see what we see. But again, this is for continuing for the course of the day. We'll see whatever happens. We'll note that. We'll trade to suit. Besides that, I don't have anything else really to pay attention to, anything to discuss. It's really just that happening right now. I have started a $50 account with Dominion Markets, and I'm gonna see how, you know, I'll go around with that account, what I can achieve with that account for the remainder of the year. Whether it's like just making $100 profit on it, just trading good risk management, taking high probability setups, and just overall managing the trade account itself. That is what I'm going to be focusing on a little bit and just like doing for now. And I want to see how far I could take this account. Maybe I could turn that $50 into $100, and then from that $100 into something else. I really want to maintain and hold that account until the ending of next year, and then I'll do like a gradual update from the account, and each month I will deposit around $50 into the account itself, right? So just to show like, okay, the ability, what you could do in a year with a $50 account, just scaling, gradually compounding and stuff like that, taking good trade setups, adding to the account $50 every month, something that everybody could afford. Or at least most people, if you do come into the trading space, I would assume you have $50 that you could afford, you know, compound and grow your account. And yeah, that's what I am planning to do with the account itself that I have opened up right now, right? It was my first time actually doing some like crypto transactions. So it was like, I was really unsure about what to do because I was transferring it from Binance into the account. I've never really dealt with crypto transfers or anything like that because I never really had a reason to. So it was like my first time actually going through the process, and I kid you not, I just think Binance whole thing on Binance just overly complicated. I haven't taken time to read anything or go through anything or look at any tutorials, so I guess it might be simpler than it seems, but just from the look of it, it could be a little overwhelming. Alright, especially like different transaction types from peer-to-peers, and just yeah, it was confusing a little bit. I figured it out on my own. I didn't watch no videos or anything for that. But yeah, I was able to do the transfer, and I saw like a little note that said you have to make sure that it's on the same network, because if not on the same network, you're losing money. And it's just $50, right? But at the same time, it's like money is money. Right? I don't want to lose it stupidly by transferring on the wrong network. But luckily enough, it was like it displayed that alright, the address that I copied from the Dominion Markets matched the address that I used. I transferred the money from on Binance to the Dominion Markets account. So it was like, no, the network lines up. You're okay. Go ahead and do a transfer. I was like, alright, cool. And I did it, and it was like I didn't see it immediately because I know people say like, okay, do cryptocurrency exchanges usually I see them immediately. I was like, I wasn't seeing anything, but for sure, you know, a couple of minutes afterwards, I did see like the transaction went through and all of that, and I was like, okay, cool. So this is actually how you do it, because I was a little confused. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little confused. Hello Val, hello. Yeah, so this is just it. This is your trade to end the week, right? If we get like 20 pips or something like that, I'll take it, right? If we get a 1-to-1, that's great, because it's really quiet, it's really slow. The DXY, we might see some pullbacks. Again, like I already discussed, by the time I end this video, like you can go back and watch it and hear about everything that I talked about if you're not joining in, or those that will join in at some point. Alright, it's just like, alright, price pull down all the way to one side. We don't just continue driving one way when it comes to price action, right? It's like a rubber band. Sometimes, you know, we have that threshold that we pass, right? When we reach that threshold, we see a pullback, right? Or we see the elasticity of price, right? Pull back, right? It has to balance out the move itself. So it pulls back, right? Which is why we have little dips in price action, even when we're trending in a particular area. You know, the areas that we look for entries, areas of liquidity, all of that stuff, right? Those are the pullbacks that we see in price. So with the DXY, I do think we could pull back to the major support zone, which would be this zone right here, right? Turn resistance, and then continue with the overall bearish bias that we do have for the dollar, right? Yeah, I do think that's like the possibility as what we could expect from price action today. We did come into a lot of major resistance zones as we trended up, so for today we could expect to see price pull back a little bit, and then moving into next week we could get those setups, you know, with price going bullishly to whichever direction, right? So continuing bullish movements for the 80 card, the USD cross pairs, right? So like maybe GPUS, no, not GPUSD, no, forget that. Maybe like NZD USD, right? So a lot of this, especially like with the risk assets, because there's such a big difference in terms of like the fundamentals, right? So we all know that it has this thing called risk sentiment, right? How risky the markets are, you know, we're taking risks. When we talk about taking risks, we talk about purchasing assets such as NZD 80, right? In times of economic uncertainty, we usually see purchasing in the yen and Swiss franc, right? The yen being one of those stagnant, very unchanging, very unwavering currencies, economies, because they don't do much with their monetary policy, or for, you know, this COVID period that they had to, you know, really take a more aggressive stance, so to speak. But usually for the Swiss franc, for the Japanese yen, it's considered safe havens because they're less likely to make any sort of volatile changes in monetary policies, and it's like a sure thing, right? Where they have economic uncertainty, right? So we could expect to see those pullbacks and then continuations, especially with the risk assets, because of the divergence between that, right? When we have risk on moods, we see price swing on the upside for AD, NCD. When we have risk off, we could expect to see price pull even lower, right? And I think we'll get more of a better movement when we have that pullback for the US dollar, if we do see that, as well as risk off tones. That just gives like more room to see price print lower in terms of this, and give us better yields and better like long continuations, right? At least that's how I rationalize it, how I see it. And like part of like, okay, my trading and everything like that, it's like understanding the price movement on the charts. And that's like one way that, you know, I rationalize certain movements, right? Well, it's worked so far, so I must be doing something right, and I'll continue to do so until, you know, until it doesn't. Right? So continuing forward, yeah, DXY pull up, and gold possibly pull down into this, back into this, so to continue higher. If we do get a break out of this consolidation, I just think we could print lower. But even if we just get into here for the rest of the day, because I'm not expecting much movement, low volume and everything like that. Well, we now started the day really, so can't say too much on that. But if we see low volume situations, anything like that, maybe for the rest of the day we might just sprint out to here. I'll take it. It is what it is. But I can't rush these things in the markets. Excuse me, you can't rush these things. You just have to, you know, wait for markets to do its thing, and then look for your setups. Don't chase after setups. Right? I think we all been there, we all done that at some point. Chasing setups just don't make sense. We need to be, you know, have more patience. Right? So this is it for me. And I gotta end it here because it don't make sense staying up. So stopping gold, no, already entered the gold, right? So this right here at 1957, right here was the entry point. Looking for price to continue moving down. It could enter now, right? Because it is at the same level, which is this level right here, particularly that I'm watching. And it's kind of preemptive, right? You want to see a break to the downside. Yeah, we already rationalized as to why. So it's just about waiting for that break. If you want to, you can be more conservative and wait until you see like a bearish candle close below that area to possibly take that gold sell, right? To be honest, I think it's kind of overrated trying to sell gold right now because it's a low volume situation and the overall market has been very exhaustive. So I don't think you'll get much yield right now, especially since it's Friday coming to the market close for the weekend. I just think it's like unnecessary, especially if you've been traded for the rest of the week and you've been profitable. It's like so unnecessary to actually take this trade. But I mean, if you was looking at a trade, this is the only trade I think worthwhile looking at. Right? So I don't know. It's personal opinion. Alright, personal opinion. See how this just flipped here? That's crazy. But yeah, that's just like my personal little opinion, right? Everybody's opinionated. But yeah, this is the trade. And GJ was like a possible buy situation. Too much going on here at the 4 hour. Don't make sense holding. Don't make sense getting into that mess. So being more frugal with everything. Just don't take it. Alright, so hopefully that answer your question. But I think this is it for me, right? Not really much going on. Yeah. So this is like coming back to the early live stream. So we just come on, see what we get, then dip. There's not really much happening, so I'm not gonna waste your time. Yeah, so we'll just see what price decides to do. Oh, I see my streaming camera. It paused. I haven't realized that. Alright, but we're gonna call it here. Call it a day. Well, not exactly call it a day, but you know what I mean. Yeah, you guys know what I mean. Alright, so we have the setup, we have the buyers, we have what expected of price, and yeah, just being frugal. My whole thing is maybe with this, like a continuation to the downside, this will be like the trade for me. Yeah, like something like this seems perfect. Yeah, not much in terms of expectations here for price, to be honest. so it's just gonna be this choppy back and forthness, just unnecessarily so. It is what it is. We'll see how this all plays out as we progress throughout the course of the day. But yeah, that's it. That's it for me. Not really much else to really discuss or talk about going on right now. Alright, so thank you very much for joining in. Yeah, so you can enter goal right now if you want to. Right, because we're right back into the level, right? To the initial level. And well, we'll see what price decides to do as we continue forward. Right? See, pulling back a little bit here. We'll see how this candle closes. Everything else, yeah, we just been trending higher, right? We just been trending higher up. Interest, yeah. So yeah, not really much we could do right now, but wait for price to like catch itself to continue and like decide what it wants to do, right? So we just have to play the patient game. That's what we're doing right now. We're playing the patient game right now, waiting. Alright guys, so thank you very much for joining. I really do appreciate the patronage. I'm gonna end this here because not really much else to really discuss right now. So yeah, hopefully see you guys. I'll see you guys next week, Monday, as we live stream again, 5 a.m. Eastern. And yeah, have a great weekend. I'll update you guys in the Discord group as to what happens.